Don't tell anybody, but I think we might have a pretty quiet week in the sky this coming week. But don't let anybody know. Hi, everybody. Thomas Miller on the Fun Astrology Weekly Overview. And yes, let's jump in here and take a look at this chart for this week. I'm starting with a particular point because this is kind of the kingpin of the entire week. And that is Venus moving into Leo. Now, a couple of other things happened before this. One that I'm very happy with is that Mercury, the trickster, the shyster, the shenanigan, will clear its shadow period at 4:36 Monday morning Eastern Time. But who's counting? Well, I am, because I have the wonderful privilege of narrating an audiobook for Ray Merriman that he wrote 35 years ago. It was written in the early 90s, and it's called Evolutionary Astrology, and it basically is a course on evolutionary astrology. So I am so excited to have the wonderful privilege of narrating this, but I haven't started yet and won't until about 4:45 Monday morning. And I'm going to be up early and I'm going to hit it right as soon as that thing is clear. Boom, we're going to get into the audiobook. But then this is really the big deal, because also on Monday, and you see here, this is set to 12:27 in the morning, and midday Monday Eastern, Venus moves into Leo. So there it is, 0 degrees Leo. And with that, obviously, it hits the Great Pyramid the same way the Sun did, the same way Mars did, the same way Mercury did. It's opposite Pluto, it's sextile Uranus, and it hits Saturn and Neptune with a trine. So these are all positive aspects. Now, there is a lot of noise in this chart, so let's just turn all of that off in the middle for a minute. Then we can focus better on this one most prominent thing. We'll bring all that other back in a minute, but we'll bring it back piece by piece so that we can examine what some of these other influences are in the chart. But as we've been talking across all of the podcasts, the Great Pyramid is the focal point. That's a sorry pyramid, but you get the idea. It's drawn affectionately with a mouse. That's a little bit hard to do sometimes. But it is the focal point of everything going on, are these planets and how they are affecting everything. And whenever you have something opposite over here in Libra, then we do have a kite. This is with the moon, so it will fly very fast. Mars has already cleared. This leg broke down on Friday for Mars. So we really, until the sun moves in there, we won't have a solid kite for another almost month. Now, the first aspects that I'd like to start with here as we bring things back, these are the quincunxes and the quindeciles, quindeciles, if you are a Noel Teal fan like I am. But this is the yod that starts us off, and this is with us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And this is exactly what this whole week looks like, is that it's Transformation 101 featuring the sun. So we could interpret that as us, or we could interpret it as the collective. We could interpret it as leaders of the collective, but there is this signature. And I'll tell you, because of where the planets are in this configuration, I've looked ahead with this, and because everything is moving across from basically Virgo, Libra, Sag, we're going to be having these kinds of aspects to the Great Pyramid for quite a while as the planets move through. It'll take Jupiter a while, but this sweep right here is what we're talking about, where we're getting these yods prolifically to these three planets. Now, when it moves on up here, then this phase 2 is we'll get yods coming between Uranus, and that's going to be more of the sudden changes. So that's kind of what's ahead of us. But we have this particular yod today that is focusing us on the transformation that is taking place. I mean, this is that mega transformational energy. And I was thinking about this. I spend so much time reflecting and pondering on this pyramid. These are such opposite energies. They really are. They are so not together. They look like, these two amigos. No, this is like the husband and wife that, she wants chicken and he wants fish tonight, and they cannot compromise. That's the way this is. This is structure. Saturn is solid structure. It wants to be methodical. It wants to build a plan. It wants to have a plan. It wants to climb the mountain. It wants to do everything long term, the long game. I'm in it for the long haul. Neptune is the fairy flying around in the sky. Over here, over there, the butterfly. Think of it like that. No structure at all. Everything is by intuition, by the hip, by gut, whenever it feels right. And they drive each other nuts. And they can't get out of this for another couple of years. That's the energy that's going on. And it's in Aries, this hot-headed, conflict-based, war symbol, Mars, the god of war in mythology kind of energy. So that's the drumbeat. That's the tension that you're feeling. When you're feeling tension spawning from the people around you, the muggles, as we say, that's where it is, right there in the chart. You want to know? Well, that's where it is. Now, it's amplified by some of these other things, but that's where it's originating from. Now, let's just focus on the quindeciles. And if you don't mind, I'm going to say it that way. I know Noel Teal said quindecile, but he also said Uranus and Virgo. So we'll, a quindecile, I mean, it spells it out. And both, I guess, because it's basically just an astrological word, both work. You can find these, when you have these quindeciles, you can find these more narrow yods. And remember that unlike the yod, which is more of a fated kind of finger of God, there's something divine, there's something in the plan that's going to unfold. Well, with these, it's more of a compulsion. It's like this drivenness. Now, this one, the one that's sitting sideways, is quicker because the moon is involved. So the moon is going to bust out of that one very fast. But look, and this is the other theme that just keeps showing up all the way through. This is us, this is you and me, reflected by the sun. That's your identity, your individuality. And this is about the changing of our karmic path, our soul path. The Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who said, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Well, this is catching the spiritual being part. There's another one between Chiron and Mars. Strong, powerful, dynamic internal changes of our wounds that have followed us all of our life. That's the other theme in this chart. This one, well, we have an interesting pair that we don't see teamed up too much right now. Mercury and Jupiter with Pluto. Now that is a really strong change of our thinking, our mental structure. And Jupiter, of course, expanding that in very positive ways. So if you're feeling these kinds of things under the surface, and if it feels really strong, like I really need to do this, or I want to get it, I think that's one of the other things that people are feeling is, I want to get it, but I don't know what it is right now. Well, of course we don't, because Saturn and Neptune, it's that pull that I was just talking about. Of course we don't know what it is because of this right here. And it's in retrograde. So we're not going to get it for a while. They go out by, well, let's say November, they're clear. Okay, then they conjoin. Then Saturn starts to pull ahead. That's what's ahead of us. So this is all of at least into halfway, 3/4 of the way through next year before Saturn is kind of standing on its own. And then it will hit a midpoint here, and then eventually it will go team up and set its sights on Uranus. So that's kind of what's ahead on all of that. Let's take a quick look here at the challenging aspects. These are the squares and oppositions, and we have a couple. We've already pointed the one out. The moon will be moving through, but it will be moving through so fast that that's just a quick little snippet for today and tomorrow, basically. And we've had it for the last couple of days. So whatever you've had before applying is stronger than when it moves off in that direction, which is where it's going. So the moon is going to clear that opposition. And I don't think that that's a super strong influence at all. The next one, as we said, that will move in, the big one will be the sun when it moves in there to begin Libra season in a couple of weeks. The biggest one that I would think could be most influential here would be Jupiter to Mars. That's a lot of tense energy right there. So there's a little bit more tension if you're feeling that, especially around relationships, family, close-in relationships. That could be affecting those if there's conflict. And then this is the one that stages for an exact on early Wednesday morning, but that's Venus opposite Pluto. So you're just saying, I mean, if something in one of your close-in relationships, we're kind of in this same theme here because of Libra, that Venus ruled Libra, that if you do experience something around a relationship, know that there is some tension pulling on that. And Pluto, remember, Pluto tears down. So if something does fall apart under this, don't blame it, because as we are continually reminded, this whole thing is positive. And here you can see it. Now, remember, we do have a kite. I just want to acknowledge that it is there with the moon, but it will not last long. And I'm parked on this time because this is really the big driver of the week, is when Venus moves into Leo. But, I mean, look, it's all positive. It's mostly positive. It's at least over 50% positive. We have, just all these formations that are so great. There's a big grand trine. We talk about that. Jupiter is in a positive aspect relationship to the nodes. That's positive. We had this on one of our recent weekly rising sign with the Great Pyramids. I just love it when there are sextiles around the chart. It's just everything right now, even as it is spread out, is connected in these favorable ways. Bring the trines back in, and it just brings even more harmony into it. This is just, it really is connecting everything. Look, everything is connected in somehow kind of way, positively, mostly. There's one other thing to consider, really. We talked about Mercury coming out of the shadow. That's early Monday morning. And then on Thursday, if you're following the moon wobble and you subscribe to the little bit closer in 14-day window, well, that would be Thursday, because the sun, in fact, we can just go back and show what that next event is that creates the moon wobble, is when the sun conjoins the south node of the moon, and that happens on 9/11. And that's why we're backing up 2 weeks prior to. It's basically like an orb. It's a leading orb of when the sun and the south node combine, and that's where Carl Payne Toby, about 100 years ago, doing some research for an insurance company, realized that it was not eclipses that seemed to trigger these house fires that they were concerned about. It was the sun's relationship to the nodes, either conjunct or square. So that's why we follow that cycle about every 3 months, is because of that pattern that he discovered about 100 years ago. And we found it to be a presence, a factor, most definitely. Big things have happened in our world around that particular time. So we're in it now, whether you're, this week is a pivotal week for it. So just make a mental note of that as well. And it's kind of a Mercury retrograde on steroids, where you just tap the brake a little bit. Now, we are not tapping the brake on our webinar, which will be on the 31st. We'd love to have you join us for that. That is at hightimelineliving.com, where you can register for that. You do have to register to participate and to get the replay, so do that. And then the other thing is, I'm going to move the time up when we throw the switch on the website. I'm going to do it Sunday. I'm going to clear the month out. We're going to start September fresh. And we will be moving from funastrology.com to hightimelineliving.com. So if you have purchased products on funastrology.com, go there, because there's a 5-step little formula that I need you to do to get your products moved over. We'll get it one way or the other, but I'm going to just start the month fresh. And the main reason I did that, and you might think about this for planning, is I didn't want to be doing that in between the eclipses. So when we set that original date, it was like, yeah, okay. But no, I was like, no, let's have this done. We've got a nice little window here. Yes, the moon wobble is in effect, but I think we've already cleared that. You know, we did this reconstruction under retrograde, Mercury retrograde. We did the reconstruction. So everything has worked really, really well. And I appreciate your support on that. Hope you have a wonderful week. I will be thinking about you, praying for you and with you. And I will see you on the podcasts along with Kristin this week. Have a great one. And thanks for your time here today.